Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you very, very much again for the opportunity. Thank you, Susanna, for this very nice and warm welcome. It's always a pleasure to come over here. It's a pleasure because Miami is always beautiful, especially on the autumn when we have this beautiful weather, the beautiful sky out there, nice temperatures, 75, 78 degrees with not that humidity that we got during the summertime. So it's really, really a pleasure to come over here and be here with you guys today. Thank you so much for the mentors of this house, for the center, and for the friends, which gave us once again the opportunity to study and be over here to share the study with you guys today. The talk today, we're going to be talking about, how much time do I have? An hour and a half?
You have until like 10 to 12, 40 minutes.
Okay, 40 minutes. I think that's going to be enough.
So we can have 10 minutes for people to make comments.
That's perfect. The talk today, we're going to be talking about the worldly person, which is a passage that we can find in the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 17, item 10. And on this chapter, we're going to be taking a look and trying to understand and to study and find out how can we try to live on this world without being attached to all the things and all these material things that we have. Our goal is to find out what we have to do, what is our ideal behavior for all of us that we can have, that we can embrace, and how can we live and can we enjoy these earthly pleasures that we have surrounding us without being attached, without being linked to these pleasures all time and during our entire life. We have the tendency during our lives to be misunderstanding and misconcepting all of these teachings and everything else that we have on earth. So before we start to talk about how to do it, how should we be living, what is out there for us, let's try to understand first, why are we on earth? Why are we here? Because when we join in Spiritism, one of the very first lessons that we learn, that we get, is that we are not a body, that we have a soul inside of us. We are immortal spirits that for a certain amount of time, we are on earth to take the lessons that we need to take our pathway towards perfection. So our true reality, our true state is the spiritual state. That's where we come from. That's where we came from. That's where God had created us, as spirits, not as bodies, not as this material thing that we have. So as we were created as spirits and as we evolve as spirits, why are we not living on the spirit realm? Why do we have to come down here? Why do we have to be on earth if we are immortal spirits? Well, actually the answer for that question is we can find on the question 132 on the Spirit's book. The question that Allan Kardec asked for the enlightened spirits, what is the purpose of the incarnation of the spirits? And the answer that we have is, God imposes, it's not an option, God imposes incarnation for the purpose of leading spirits to perfection. For some, it is an expiation. For others, it's a mission. The incarnation has also a further objective, which is to place the spirits in condition where they can do their share in the work of creation. Their share in the work of creation? But I thought everything was created by God. How come can we share this work of creation? What is our role over here? Well, it's true that God has created everything on nature. God hadn't created it himself, the computers, the microphones, the TVs, the buildings, all of these material things that we have around in us that support our material life. We as incarnated spirits, we as spirits in an involvement process, we made this transformation. We used the resources that we had from nature and we created new things to create a new environment, to create better things for ourselves. So if we look into the earth nowadays, even with all the wars and conflicts that we have out there, and if we look at our health, for example, we have much better health today than we used to have 150 years ago, 200 few hundred years ago. That's an involvement. That's a progress. That's why some scientists came over here prepared to find out new ways and new drugs and new treatments for the diseases that we used to have. New concepts were brought to us. So every time that a spirit which is prepared, which has the conditions to contribute for a better life, for a better environment, this spirit is also contributing for the work of creation of God. Because as we progress, as we use better our minds, our brains, our knowledge, we can do better choices. And when we do better choices, we have better consequences for what we are creating. So we are also being part of this huge and infinite work of creation. So that's why also we take a part, we have a role on development of the worlds that we live, and we have a contribution to make. Every time that we do something, that we create something, that we are adding some more happiness or enjoyment for other people, we are contributing for this work of God. So we have a role to share on this creation thing. So that's why we also, one of the roles that we have here is this work of creation. And this way, while contributing to the general work, they progress at the same time. So wrapping up everything that I just mentioned, that I just said, we are here to try ourselves, take the lessons that we need, to learn the lessons which is going to take us towards perfection. But why can I do that from the spiritual realm? If I'm in spirit, why am I not there? Why do I have to be over here? Well, chances are that when we are in the spiritual realm, we have no chances to try, for example, our patience, our tolerance, our adversities. Because when we are in the spiritual realm, most likely we're going to be surrounded by people that we like it, that we get together, that we have the same line of thoughts, for example, that we create some affinity. So you don't have problems and struggles with people that you like it. You don't have to practice tolerance with people that have the same line of thoughts that we have. There is no disagreements. We live, I would say, on a perfect life. We have no need to fight for our sustained this body. We have not to work to make money and buy food for ourselves. We not have to do with all the struggles on our daily lives. When we are in the spiritual realm, we have no opportunity to try if the lessons that we are taking are being really learned. So when we come over here, then is when we have the opportunity to try ourselves and see how strong we are on this pathway and involvement progress that we have to take. When we are out there, we are not challenged. And we just put our learnings and our experiences into trial if we are challenged. If you are challenged to be patient. If you are challenged to be tolerant. If you are challenged to practice love, to practice charity. If you are not challenged, we don't try that. We don't do that when we are not have to do that. So that's the basic reason. It's part of our evolvement. It's part of our progress journey that we have to come down here. But why is so hard to live on earth? Why we struggle that much? Well, according to the passage that we can find in the Gospel, also according to Spiritism, this is the situation of the terrestrial humanity, because as the earth is a world of atonement, evil is the predominating factor. When the planet has been transformed, the pathway to goodness will be the one most frequently followed. But the evil over here, it has a kind of a distack. Why is that? How can we define evil? Is a person evil by nature? Are we evil ourselves because we like to be evil, because we were born evil? What is evil? Evil is just a lack of love. That's the same thing as black is a lack of color. Evil is the lack of love inside of us. Our true essence, it's a love essence, because we were created by God. As God is the purest form of love that we can imagine, God, as pure love, cannot create something that restores to evil or has evil inside of us. We were created as simple as we can be created. Our true nature is a love nature. But we have to conquer the love. We have to learn the love and bring the love inside of us. So the evil side, the evil part that we have inside of us is just a lack of love. As soon as we start to take those daily doses or daily lessons on love or on love, we're going to be transforming ourselves. We're going to be fulfilling all of this empty space that we have inside of us with love, and then we're going to be transforming ourselves. But that takes time. That takes exercise, that takes experiences, that takes learning curves, pains that we can bring and change the way that we are facing life. So when we do that, when we do this transformation process, then we're going to be looking on earth on a different perspective. But as I just mentioned, that takes some time. Why is it so hard to live on earth? Because as we are in a planet of trials and expiations, most of us, we don't have love enough inside of us that we can practice, that we can put into test all the teachings and everything else that Jesus had brought to us. We are still in this learning process. Once we fill ourselves with enough love, we're going to be contributing for a change on the world's perspective. And that's how we're going to be helping and also contributing for the work of God into the transformation process that earth has to go through as well, so we can become a better place. So why is it so hard to live over here? Because we just don't have enough love inside of us. Once we bring the love, everything is going to be so nice. Everything is going to be so much easier to face and to live with. Another thing also that contributes a lot, that's we give much more attention to the worldly voices out there than our own voices. So this cartoon over here, I think it explains by itself. Dear God, how come I can never hear your voice? Of course, watching TV, watching the news, playing the computer, working with the iPhone or the iPad on your ears, you are never going to learn or going to listen to God's voice. We have God's voice talking around us every day, all the time. Someone which is in need, it's God asking for help. Anyone which is going through pain, it's God asking for us to give some time for someone. We have God's voice talking about us every day, but we don't listen. We are too busy for that. We are not taking about even 30 seconds to try to listen what God has to say to us for that day, for that moment, because we are too busy. We are too connected with a lot of other things, and we are not paying attention, which is not the case for you guys over here on this morning, because you guys were able to make a couple of hours out of your Sunday, out of your sunny Sunday, and a wonderful, gorgeous day outside, out there, to come over here and try to at least reflect a little bit more about your behavior, what you were doing, what I have to improve on myself. But most of the people out there, they are not waiting, they are not listening what God has to say to them. But you guys are in a transformation process. You already can make some time out of your busy schedule to come over here and listen to this Brazilian guy with this very strong accent saying a lot of other things for you guys. But what about I just mentioned about these worldly voices. What these worldly voices are screaming towards us? We're listening a lot of this vanity. And vanity says to us, everything is for you. Everything should be yours. You should have that. Also, pride says to you, you should be admired and obeyed by everything. You should be the number one. Everybody else should be following you and your guidance and your orientation. Pride tells us every day, your ideas are the best. No one thinks like you. Your solutions are the best ones. Revolt says to us, not humiliate yourself. Lying, everything is wrong. You are the only one right. Pleasure says to us, I want satisfaction and rest all the time. That's what the worldly voices are telling us. That's what we have the word trying to bring. That's the message that we have pretty much every day in our lives. And we got confused. Sometimes we don't know very well what kind of pathway should we be taking, where should I go, which voices should I be listening. Because we are so focused on this material world where we are over here to try ourselves, and we're forgetting to listen to God's voice. But let's just take a brief pause over here and try to bring the things under a new perspective, or under a correct perspective. As humans, as this body that we have right now, how many years are we going to be living more? Me, hopefully another 50 or 60 years. I don't know if my wife is going to take that long with me, but that's another problem. But I expected to live it at least another 50 years so I can see my grandkids grow up and starting to have my grandchilds as well. I expected to enjoy life much, at least 50 years ahead of me, because, you know, I think that I still have a few opportunities here and there to learn something different that I can improve and put myself on a evolvement pathway and this kind of thing. So I expected to live another 50 years. So the younger ones, they expected to live another 60, 70, 80 years maybe. And what after that? So if we think just as the humans incarnated at this moment, how many more years do we have ahead of us? Okay? But let's try to bring another perspective. Let's try to bring it to our minds and have this very clear on our minds, our true nature. We are immortal spirits. What I'm doing right now, what kind of consequences is going to bring it to me on my future lives, on my evolvement process, on my evolvement progress? What kind of life I'm expecting for myself in the future, and what I'm doing right now to have the benefit to collect these things that I'm doing right now in the future. The things that I'm doing right now are what kind of consequences are going to bring it to me in the future. So if we start to think 2, 3, 4 incarnations ahead of us, if we start to think on our immortality, then this entire worldly thing that we have around of us changes perspectives and loses importance. So that means that I cannot enjoy a boat ride on a Sunday afternoon like that on the sea. Oh yes, of course you can. Please do that. It's part of life. But one thing is have an opportunity to enjoy a few hours or a few days of rest and recover for ourselves. And the other thing is to transform our entire life just to take boat rides in the afternoon on the Biscayne Bay. These are two different things. So when we put this on a different perspective, when we try to bring our immortal nature to the equation, things changes. But well then, how to live on this world? If I'm surrounded by these material things, I'm surrounded by all of these pleasures and attractions and everything, how should I be living over here? Well, God wants us to think on Him, but He also wants us to fulfill our duties in the world, living as we should live the man of our time. Okay, translate that into English, please. Well, I'll try. It's not that difficult. God is expecting us to do our duties, to do our role, what we're here to do. So when we wake up, we have a job to do, we have some tasks that we must develop. We have to take care of our material things so we can also have some time for our spiritual world. So as we are on earth, we gotta be living on this earth, following, I would say, the earth rules, but without being affected and dominated by the pleasures and the attractions and the excess that we have surrounding us. Can we take advantage? Can we enjoy? Of course we can, but we cannot just be let ourselves attached so much to these things that the only thing that we're going to be thinking about is the earthly possessions, the earthly richnesses, and all the pleasures that we can have, that we can enjoy as human beings as while we have this body on earth. We have a lot of other things going on. We can leave the pleasures of the world as the human condition allows us to do. There is no problem on leaving these pleasures and enjoying that. I want to make this very, very clear. There is no problem on enjoying them. What we must not to do is to abuse the pleasures and let them enslave us. We have to command these pleasures, and not the pleasures command ourselves. Paul, as we can find in one of his epistles, says, all things are lawful for me, but not everything is beneficial. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be mastered by anything. We don't have to live as fanatical people running away from this pleasure or alienated from the world and what else the world is offering for us on our recreational needs, for example. We don't have to run away from the comfort of a TV, a phone, a computer, or anything like that. It's in the access that lies our addiction. It's in the access that we have our problems. How to live without being attached and linked to these pleasures. How do I live without being so much addicted to things? Well, I have a solution. I'm going to sell everything. I'm going to run away from the mountains. Really? Do we want really to run away to the mountains? What kind of benefit we're going to bring that to us? Are we going to be challenged by the earthly things? Are we going to be tried out for these things? Are we going to be testing ourselves if we can dominate ourselves? Because make no mistake about that. The most powerful man on the world, it's not Obama. It's not the commander-in-chief from the Chinese army. The most powerful man in the world is the one that can control and dominate himself. It's not the one who has the power to destroy everything. It's the one that can control and dominate himself. If we are running away, how can we try ourselves and see if we can dominate ourselves? So running away to the mountains is not an option. It's not going to help us on anything. There is no merit in isolating ourselves from the world, on the allegation of not wanting to contaminate us by the vices and the earthly pleasures. It is exactly in contact with the facilities of life on what we call the temptations that we are going to improve ourselves. Resisting the dragging of our evil tendencies, it shows to ourselves how strong we really are to face the evil that still exists on us. So I said a little earlier that one of the things that we have to transform ourselves to dominate this evil tendency is to fulfill ourselves with love. How do we fulfill ourselves with love? The easiest one is following the teachings and the examples from Jesus. If we can at least try to study, understand, at least to try to practice those teachings, we are starting to fulfilling ourselves with the love, which is going to be dominating our evil tendencies. Also, these teachings, they represent the transformation from the old man, the man that I used to live based only on the earthly concepts, on the material things that we have over here. This transformation from this old man to the new spirit, the man that starts to live as a spirit and think as a spirit, immortal spirits. So we make this transition, forgetting our only material side, and we try to bring into the perspective our true nature, our true essence, which is the immortal spirit. And Jesus is exactly the link where we can do this transformation and this process on this passage, let's put it this way. When we just forget the only material side and we put our spiritual perspective into a new way, into a new look, into a new opportunity for ourselves. Because we say a lot that we want to evolve, that we want to follow that we want to go to a better place. But what are we doing really to deserve that? Let's compare ourselves today with 20 years ago, 30 years ago, because I would say the average age over here is about 18, 19 years. So let's just compare ourselves with the last 30 years. How better are we today comparing to 30 years ago? Did we evolve anything? Did we evolve a little, too much, a lot? It's individual. But if you are evolving, if you are getting new perspectives, even if we evolve and we are better today than we were 30 years ago, let's compare what we had evolved with Christ's teachings and behavior. His examples, his attitudes, his teachings. How close or how far are we from these teachings? If you are a little bit far away yet, we still have to do some efforts on this transformation. It's going to take some time, I know that. But once we take this pathway, there is no return. Because we're going to start to enjoy ourselves so much that we're going to start to think, how dare and how come I was able to do these kind of things in the past? Because the pleasure, the satisfaction, the love that we're going to be fulfilling ourselves, we're going to be tremendous. It's going to bring us a tremendous sense of joy on ourselves. Also, Earth is our test track. That's where we try and we put into trials everything that we had learned. If we are just living on a perfect world, there is no way that we can try out ourselves. Have I heard or have I learned these lessons that I wasn't needed to learn? Can I really do what I'm supposed to be doing? The only way that we can answer that question is if we are challenged. So that's why sometimes life changes our plan, just to see if you are really prepared for those challenges. If we are up to what God is expecting from us. There's a lot of examples out there, and how can we behave, how can we start to doing things on a different way. And one of the most beautiful ones that I can bring to you guys is some examples that I could find on the book Contos and Apólogos, and no translation into English yet, I'm sorry, from Brother X. And on the chapter 22, they have an entire message. It's called Christian Conduct. I just brought two short examples, but I think that we're going to try to illustrate what I'm trying to say over here. One of the examples, for example, if a calumny reaches us, what should we do? React? Process someone? Take this guy to the judge or to the court or something like that? The recommendation that we have from Jesus is, you shall forgive and work, enabling the renewal of judgment people have about you. You are not good enough. You are still leaving behind some misinterpretation or misinformation. We have to forgive, and we have to work even better on us, so we leave no doubts on what we mean and how we behave. What if the creatures in bad faith changes or cross our path? While Jesus says, you shall forgive and work, doing as much as possible to bring them in the level of your understanding, excusing and supporting them infinitely. You shall forgive and work to bring them in the level of your understanding, excusing infinitely. This word infinitely here, it's not 7 times 70. It's infinitely. Can we do that? How patient are we?
Working on it.
Yeah, that's the point. Working on it. Working on it. And that's another, which I think over here we have a tremendous lesson and explains a lot what we were doing over here this morning. Because Spiritism is the integration process between man, as we live today, and the Word, our real Word, our spiritual Word. And Spiritism, it's not intended to be an escape route. I'm just going to be following Spiritism, so I'm not going to be facing these challenges or anything. Spiritism is explaining all the whys, all the reasons, and everything that we never had clear on our minds. It helps us to face these challenges. So that means that when we join Spiritism, that means that all of our problems, the struggles and troubles that we have, they are going to all disappear just because I joined Spiritism. No. If you came here expecting that, I strongly recommend that you go back to the beach and start to enjoy your Sunday, because that's not the reason. Spiritism is not going to take any of us out of our problems. That most likely were created by ourselves. We are just collecting the consequences of our own choices and decisions. But Spiritism will gonna give us the strength, the understanding on why we're going through this, and the pathway not to have the same problems in the future. The Spiritism is going to explain how these behaviors, how these changes that we have, that we are asking, that we are being told by the spirits to do and to implement in our lives. Spiritism is explaining how we're going to be collecting the consequences. Because when you look into our lives, there is no movies on TVs or the channels that we can talk with the discarnate people. Just quite yet. I know there's a few people working on this. Probably later on we're going to be a much better and clear communication between the spiritual world and the material world. But there is no program, there is no, how do you call this, reality TV yet bringing us any news from the spiritual realm. So we don't know exactly how the things happen in the future. So it's kind of complicated for us, and sometimes even to accept, why should I be changing my behavior right now if I don't know exactly what is going to happen to me in the future? Is there another life? Are we real immortal? Well, that's why Spiritism is trying to bring it to us with all the books and the explanations and the studies that Spiritism is supporting and is giving to us. It explains and brings us to our own conclusions everything else which is going to happen to us in the future. It's up to us to develop these behaviors. It's up to us to understand how can we be changing this. So living on this word, what Jesus is expecting from all of us on this worldly person, is to be living as we should be living, fulfilling our rules and our duties over here on earth, without being dominated by these earthly pleasures. And I know sometimes it's quite complicated to do that, but when we bring our immortal perspectives under our lives and our decisions and our choices is going to be much better. Because we're going to be facing different concepts and consequences in the futures. There is another set of examples which me personally I like a lot. I'm not going to go into all the details and everything because I had mentioned these over here before. But on the book Paul and Stephen, we have that dialogue between Paul and Abigail when he's leaving the desert after the 3 years. On his transformation process and everything, and then he faces or he sees Abigail on a dream, and he put all of his anguishes outside. He's going through this transformation process.
I'm not sure if everybody knows who Abigail is, so it would be amazing. Abigail
is it was during this while Saul of Tarsus, or was still Saul of Tarsus. Abigail was the woman that he fell in love with. And then doing for a newness that she had, she started to pass it away and they never got married. Abigail was also the sister for Stephen, which was the first martyr of a Christianism that was stoned to death before the year 55 or 60 on the new era. So So Abigail has a very important role on Paul's life. It's a person that was walking with him even after she passed away. So it was a person with, by her attitude, by her behavior, Paul started to admire her even more after she passed away. So Abigail came to him on a dream, and he asked her, what can we do to acquire a perfect understanding of Christ's design? How can we acquire a perfect understanding on Christ's teachings? And she says to him, love. But not the love that we have between husbands and wives, couples, or our kids, or relatives, or the people that we like. The true love. To go toward someone which are in need without expecting to be called. That's the true love. And then Paul also asks her, how can we proceed in order to grow richer on the divine virtues? Jesus ordered us to love even our enemies. What can we do for our soul to reach such an elevated expression of effort on Jesus' teachings? And the answer that she brings is work. How can we get richer virtues? That's when we work inside ourselves. That we do this transformational work, not just the work that we do on an earthly basis towards other people, but most important, the work that we have to do inside ourselves. The transformation process that we got to go through. Also, he asks, what measures could we adopt against the destructive discouragement when we have problems, when we face the struggles that we see, or that we say, well, there is no solution for that. God, what do I know now? Where should I go? Where should I follow? What kind of decision should we take? And she answers, hope. Because if we believe truly in God, and God is all power, all love, all justice, all charity, all justice, we'll have enough hope and enough trust on Him that the things that we're going through on this moment, we might not understand, but there is a reason for that. And that God's reasons are always the most perfect and most justice reasons that we may find. So if we keep the faith and we keep the understanding, we'll be able to keep the hope that sooner or later we're going to be leaving that problem and we're going to be finding a solution for the struggles that we're facing. And also, before she leaves, he asks her, how are to reconcile the grand lessons of the gospel with the human indifference, injustices, and difficulties? And the answer is to forgive. Are we able to forgive? The true forgiveness. So these are other examples that we can bring into our life. These sentiments represent, if well learned and apply it, the most profound transformation that we can do in ourselves on this earthly life. If we can truly understand and incorporate these feelings and these teachings on us, we're going to be able to do a huge transformation. And to wrap up our talk today, before Susanna kicks me out of here, I just want to bring a brief message or a brief passages from this Emmanuel's message that was published in 1951. It's entitled, "The Christ's Voice." If anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. Emmanuel says, there's a profound difference between the earthly demands and the voice of our celestial friends, or our celestial friend. And just as an example, the Word asks and tells us, make yourself comfortable as you wish. And the Christ tells us, get up and walk. The Word asks us, do whatever you want. And the Christ teaches us, sin no more. Destroy the opponents That's the worldly voices tells us. And Christ says, love your enemies. Denies those who bother you. But the Christ counterparts, which requires you to walk with him 1 mile, walk him 2 miles. Or actually it's 1,000 steps and you walk with him 2,000 steps. In the word we learn that we should hurt and revenge those which had hurted against us. But the Christ says, forgive always. The word says, censorship as you like. And the Christ says, do not condemn. So the differences that we have between those earthly lives and whatever Christ is teaching us is profound. This difference is very, very deep and profound. But once we do our choice, based on our immortal life, we'll be able to follow and to reach to us a new pathway, totally different, which we're going to be allowing us to live on this world, enjoying the earthly pleasures without being attached, without being enslaved by them. For those who has ears to hear, listen to them with your heart while it is still time to sow, because the re-up in the future is an obligation for all of us. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate very, very much the opportunity. If you guys have any questions or comments, please. That means